resubmitted the rate of return. If you do not yet have a perfect score in your rate of return, resubmit and tell me that you have it. I got to see your work on it. The right answers are good, but I have to see your work for you to get a 10 out of 10. But I want everybody to get a 10 out of 10. I mistakenly said on Friday that your stock games were due on I think I said that they were due on the 5th, and they're not. They're due on the 9th. You have some extra time on that. I'm going to be checking in with Career Services this week, because today is technically the due date for your handshake profile. If you haven't gotten your handshake up, please get that done. Guys, the next assignment you have in this class is a simple discussion post from Chapter 4 telling me what franchise would you start. It's a simple discussion post. For Chapter 5, because you guys are working right now on your stock portfolios, check this out. There are no assignments for Chapter 5. All you have to do for Chapter 5 is be present and be a part of the conversation. How about that? No assignments for Chapter 5. After we get through Chapter 5, however, which is all about being an entrepreneur, we're getting into Chapter 6. And after Chapter 6, we have our second test in this class. We will review. You have nothing to fear. But we're going to get in first, guys, because we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship. How many of you, by show of hands, at some point in your life, whether it's your livelihood or a second business, how many of you want to own your own business at some point in time? So we've got some folks in here who are budding business owners. Some folks, for example, don't realize they want to be entrepreneurs till later in life. It comes down to you want to be your own boss or want to own your own business. What I'm asking you, if you would, go to polev.com/KenTompkins063 and tell me, what do you think it takes to be an entrepreneur? What makes somebody successful if they try to start their own business? Again, that's polev.com/KenTompkins063. My voice is cracking all the time these days. Not sure what's happening there. So, KenTompkins063, that's it. So let's see what you think it takes to make a successful entrepreneur. I'm going to participate as well. Oh, we get lots of good stuff in this. This is great. Oh, I love it. We get creativity, determination, leadership, peers, risk, grit. I love that term, by the way. Grind. Somebody who's willing to put the time in. I think you guys are capturing a lot of the key things. Let's see what ends up as the biggest word. Determination is the biggest word there. And more than one person has picked that word because it is the biggest word. Well, somebody who wrote determination, tell me why they wrote that word. Because I agree with that word. Why is determination such a key attribute to entrepreneurs? Or even if you didn't write that word, why is that such an important word? Anybody have any thoughts on that? Yes, sir.
Because starting a business is so difficult, you really have to want it. And it takes like years of not really making money and working really hard. You just got to push through it.
It could be lots of long nights, early mornings, low pay, have all kinds of things on your back and trying to figure this out by yourself. You better be determined. You got to have grit. And I love that money shows up here too. You got to fund this endeavor at some point in time. When you say you have to be smart, it means you also have to be able to make good decisions. I love that the term confidence is up there too, because sometimes you believe in something when nobody else does. That's what makes some great ideas happen, guys. And I love that risk is up there too. You guys have some good ideas about this stuff. We're going to start off today, however, with some entrepreneurial trivia. We're going to see if you can tell me who this person is. So I'm going to be giving you a description, and we'll see if you can guess the entrepreneur I'm talking about. This person is a television star, and he began his entrepreneurial empire by selling rebranded T-shirts on street corners. Literally selling T-shirts on street corners. He made his business by providing clothing in larger sizes for rap star bodyguards. Who am I talking about? I'll give you a hint. The brand starts off with an F. It's a one-word brand. It is FUBU. Do you know who the entrepreneur is? He is on Shark Tank. Who is it, guys? It is Mr. It's not Mr. Wonderful, but, well, I mean, some people call him Mr. Wonderful. His real name is Damon John. So Mr. Damon John got his start because he knows he loved hip-hop music, he loved rap, and he noticed most of the guys who were rappers had these big dudes as bodyguards, and they could not get cool-looking clothing. So he said, that's a potential market for me. He started getting t-shirts, larger size t-shirts from other brands, and rebranding them with his own brand that was way cooler, and he made a niche for himself. Literally, if you ever get a chance to hear his life story, they were doing production runs in his mom's house, and he made himself a millionaire just by finding the right market. Let's see if you guess this next one. This is a tech giant, and he started his computer company in his parents' garage. He got part of the startup money by selling his van. Who am I talking about? We got a guess from Bill Gates, and you're oh so close. It is Steve Jobs. By the way, guys, the first Apple computer, I'll show you a picture of it sometime, was actually made on a wood circuit board. You put a circuit board on a piece of wood to do the original design for the Apple. All right, we have this singer. A lot of people don't know this. This best-selling singer grew up on a Christmas tree farm right outside of Reading before heading to Nashville. Who am I talking about? Absolutely correct. Taylor Swift is a Pennsylvanian, and before she was a pop star, she got into country, but she had to go to Nashville to do it. Oh, this children's book author was almost homeless when her first big book became a smash hit. Who am I talking about? You guys grew up with this author. It is J.K. Rowling. Yeah, she was almost on the street before she finally got a hit on her book. All right, and we got a media mogul. The first movie company this person started went bankrupt, and he was fired for not being creative. Who might this be? It was Walt Disney. Could you imagine Walt Disney getting fired for not being creative? So he stuck with his dream regardless and created one of the biggest, most powerful entertainment companies in the world. This coffee shop creator was turned down 200 times, literally 200 times, trying to get money to start his business. And you guys know I love coffee. This happens to be my favorite brand of coffee this guy started. What would you guess the brand might be? I like strong, bitter coffee. I like my coffee like my beers, dark and bitter. What might it be? How many major coffee brands do you guys know about? How about the one they sell downstairs? Begins with an S. Starbucks. Howard Schultz got turned down 200 times. And check this out. This guy literally got a C for his concept paper because he started a shipping company that said they could do overnight shipping just about anywhere. Even if you don't know the name of the entrepreneur, what company am I talking about? It's not Amazon. It's a company that existed before Amazon that could guarantee it positively, absolutely overnight. It is FedEx. This guy's name was Fred Smith. He literally submitted a concept paper for a business class and said, I have this great idea. We're going to be able to ship anywhere in the United States overnight. His teacher said this will never work and gave him a C on the paper. So you never know when an idea is going to come through. And finally, she's the only black woman on Forbes' 400 richest list, and she grew up on a farm in a boarding house. Now she's worth over $3 billion. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Oprah Winfrey. Arguably one of the most powerful women on the planet and came from very humble beginnings. So entrepreneurship can literally start anywhere. Anybody can have a great idea. Anybody can make it. So what we're going to be talking about is why should you try to explore entrepreneurship? What are different ways we can become entrepreneurs? How much tolerance for risk do you have? What are the benefits? We're going to talk about why entrepreneurs are so important to the U.S. economy, because how much they contribute. We're going to talk about the challenges of being an entrepreneur and how you can find things like startup capital and startup help. This is all stuff we're going to explore in this chapter. I love entrepreneurship because we get all these great ideas. You guys have, by the way, really good ideas for what entrepreneurs are all about. Somebody who's an entrepreneur either finds a way to create a new product or make something better. There are people who are willing to take a risk to either come up with something new or make something better. They're usually people who are innovators. Now, innovators are part of it, but it also means it's somebody who can find something that people really want or need. Sometimes, for example, we may have a great idea that may go nowhere. I know this is going way back, guys. How many of you remember watching movies on videotape? Yeah, VHS. It's like retro cool now to watch VHS. There were two competing brands back in the day when videotape became a thing. There was VHS and there was Beta. Beta was a better format. It looked better, the audio quality was better, the video was better, but VHS won out. So the best ideas don't always win. And sometimes the first ideas don't win either. What's the largest social media company in the world right now? It is Facebook. Yes, by the way, you know how many users Facebook has? Take a guess. How many users does Facebook have? I'll give you a hint. It's in the billions. Billions with a B, a big-ass B. So how many users does Facebook have? Take a guess. How many think it's over a billion? Raise your hand if you think it's over a billion. Raise your hand if you think it's over 2 billion. It's 3 billion. They got 3 billion users. Were they the first major social media company? They were not. Anybody take a guess? Who was the first big social media company? MySpace, which is worth next to nothing now. But being first isn't always the best. Facebook improved on social media. They made it accessible for more people. People who are good entrepreneurs can see the future. They can see what people need. So the difference is, guys, if we have somebody who says, hey, I want to start a small bookstore. I love books. You can be a small business person. Jeff Bezos is an entrepreneur. The difference is anybody can open a bookstore. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with being a small business owner. That's a great thing. But somebody who is an entrepreneur is somebody who takes it to the next level and does something unique or different with it. That's why we love entrepreneurs, because they change the game for us. So guys, small businesses, if you remember, we talked, let's see who remembers this, guys. In the last chapter, we talked about sole proprietorships and we talked about corporations. Corporations, out of all the money that gets made in the United States, what percentage gets made by corporations? Out of 100%? Take a guess. It's like 80%. So the flip side is 80% of all the businesses in the United States are small businesses. So we got corporations about, a small percentage of overall businesses, like something like 5%, account for 80% of the revenue, but most people start out in small business. So if we get into small business, I don't want you to have to worry about these numbers. Don't worry about these percentages. Innovation comes from small business. And for lots of reasons, guys. If we want to change something in the world, if we want to change a company, I'll give you a great example of why big companies sometimes don't move all that fast. How many of you guys remember having a BlackBerry in your house? Did your parents have a BlackBerry? Yeah, you know what they used to call them, by the way, Will? You know what the nickname was for a BlackBerry? Anybody have a guess? What? Tell me something that rhymes with black. What's a word that rhymes with black? Whack. That's a good one, too. Crack. Who said crack? They call them crackberries because people got so addicted to these things, they call them crackberries. BlackBerry, back in 2007, when the iPhone came out, had something like 89% of the market share for smartphones because they were the only smartphone on the planet. What's their global market percentage now? Well, less than 1%. That means if your company can't respond, you can't compete. And the reason entrepreneurs sometimes can take down giant companies is because they can respond more quickly. If you're an entrepreneur, there are questions you got to ask yourself. Do you have something that people want? Is it different? Is it unique? Is it something that people are going to be willing to pay for? Do you have more than one generation of idea? Can you revise this and change it, make it into other things? Is it repeatable? How are you going to market it? Does this product have a long life cycle? We think about things. I'm going to mention Facebook for a second. For example, Facebook continues to grow and evolve. They're selling video phones now that are Facebook branded so that older people who aren't comfortable with FaceTime can use one of these devices. Does anybody in your family have one? Yeah, some families do. If you come up with a good idea, you want to make sure it perpetuates. All these things build businesses in the long run. And one of the highest rates of entrepreneurship we're seeing in the United States are non-white Americans. So we're seeing more people who are coming in as African American and Hispanic who are entering the idea of being in entrepreneurship. And by the way, guys, people who emigrate to the United States are something like 5 times more likely to start a business. So a lot of people who come up with really great ideas in the United States are people who come from somewhere else. We're going to talk about the types of entrepreneurs we have. We got what we refer to as a classic. We got multipreneurs and intrapreneurs. And you've heard about intrapreneurs. Let's talk about classic entrepreneurs first. These are people who have a great idea and they just run with it. I have this great idea. I'm going to start a business. A micropreneur is somebody who starts small. All right, this is going way to the back of the rack here. I know we have lots of music fans in here. Are any of you fans of classic rock? Okay, we won. Well, even if you're not a fan, how many of you guys have ever heard of the band Boston? Yeah, Boston was a huge band. I mean, all the songs you've heard too many times are probably by Boston. And your dad, I guarantee everybody in this room, your dad loves Boston. Because all dads love Boston. It's Father's Day, if you get your dad a Boston t-shirt and a greatest hits CD, you're going to get like Kid of the Year. Because your dad's going to be like, you know what a dad wants. It's almost as good as getting like a Craftsman set of tools or a lawnmower, but it's way cheap. What are other good dad gifts? Like ties. Ties are always good dad gifts. If you get a dad a hammer, dads love those too. And liquor. Liquor is always a good dad gift for a lot of dads too. Not all dads, but some dads. But I digress. Your dad knows who Boston is. And Tom Schultz was the guy who started the band Boston. Tom Schultz, in addition to being one of the greatest guitar players of all time, and this guy can really play, was an electrical engineer. So he would work all day as an electrical engineer, making big bucks, by the way. He had a successful career. And at night, he would go over and play guitar. He came up with this idea for a thing called a Rockman. If you've never heard of one of these before, do any of your friends, by the way, play electric guitar? Who is a friend who plays electric guitar? It's loud, right? When they practice, it's loud. He came up with an amp. You could plug in a set of headphones to it and practice quietly. I know that sounds crazy because we can all do that now. We couldn't in the 70s. So he started off by making small products while he was still working full-time. And eventually he got so busy with music and making amplifiers and all this sort of stuff, his boss basically said, either you got to be an engineer or you got to be a rock star. You can't be both. You're eating up too much time. So he went from being a micropreneur to being a complete entrepreneur and starting one of the most successful bands of the classic rock era. If you get somebody who's a multipreneur, that's somebody who just says, hey, I can't stop after one. I've got to start multiple companies. I love it when we get into people like Elon Musk. In addition to Tesla, what's Elon Musk's other company? SpaceX, arguably even more successful than Tesla. Guys, check this out. We're in a period of history where the government now is using private companies to get them to space. We don't maintain our own space shuttles anymore. We don't maintain our own mission rockets anymore. We call out SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, and say, can you hitch us a ride to the International Space Station? Richard Branson, who started a bunch of companies, including Virgin Mobile and Virgin Airlines. We have all these folks who start up multiple businesses. Why is it? Well, you start the ball rolling. After you have that first successful business, what else do you also have, in addition to experience? You got money, man. You got money and you want to invest. And then we get into entrepreneurs. Who here can give me an example? We talked about several examples. Who here can give me an example of an entrepreneur we talked about this year? Even if you remember the product. Yes, sir.
The guy that created the Big Mac.
Yeah, who got a plaque for his trouble. So here's an entrepreneur. And we had Spencer Silver. He's the guy who created the Post-it note. We talked about him earlier. So the wonderful part about being an entrepreneur is you get to create things while somebody else is footing the bill. You get to create things where I have to worry about sales. You get to have the benefits of working for a company and still being creative. This is Spencer Silver, by the way. I don't know if he's still alive or not. He was pretty old in this picture, so I hope he's still alive. That would make my day a little darker to think Spencer Silver, the guy who invented the Post-it note, hadn't been sticking around. Anyway, there it is. It's terrible. You shouldn't laugh about people who might be dead. That's not funny. That's not funny talking. That's in bad taste. You're right. It is in bad taste. I apologize. So, but let's continue, guys. We know what... Actually, no, let's not continue. Let's stop for 1 second here, because I've been talking a long time and mocking people who possibly are dead. That's not a good way to start your Monday. So we need to stop for just a second at 9:25 in the morning to see if somebody has a question or comment for us at some point today. What would you like to say or ask? Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's not a question, but the guy who invented the toast is still alive.
He's 89, so I don't have to apologize that he's not dead. I'm okay. Thank you for letting me know that. I think Spencer Silver, you know what? How many of you have a beverage with you today? If you do, take out, let's have a toast to Mr. Spencer Silver. Glad you're still alive. Glad you're 89. Cheers to you, Spencer Silver. Coffee never tasted so sweet. All right, well, let me ask you guys a question. Have you ever, and I'm curious if anybody's had this happen, have you ever wanted a product that didn't exist? Have you ever what did you want that didn't exist?
My mom used to do the keys all the time, so I used to say like I would make her something like so she could like put it on there and like call the keys.
You know, I actually have some. Have you ever heard of these things they call tiles?
No, but I know they made it already.
Oh, I had the same problem. I lose my keys all the time. In fact, here's what happened. My first year teaching here, we did Secret Santa. And have any of you had Dr. Keeley for class before? Dr. Keeley got my name as my Secret Santa. She got me this thing called a tile. They're like $50. And it's a GPS unit. Check this out. Like anywhere, the last place I leave my keys, my phone knows where my keys are. But it cross-references. So if I lose my phone, my keys know where my phone is. And if I lose both of them, I go on the internet, I can track them both. It's a great device, though. So that's you should get your mom one of those. Mother's Day's coming up. She'd love that. She'd think you're. How many siblings you got?
One.
You'd be the favorite. If you're not already, you'd be the favorite after that. $50, that's worth it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She got a little spike to keep them there. She don't lose them as much.
That's even cheaper too. But yeah, you get like favorite son status for a year for that. So who else wants something that doesn't exist? There's something, anything you guys have wanted that does not exist. What do you want, Will, that doesn't exist?
One of those like a car that can also like become a helicopter.
Flying car. I want that too. I want that so bad.
You sit in traffic and you just want to like push a button, just fly over everybody like that.
I want that more than I can put into words. You know what else I want? I want a sign for the rear windshield of my car. I want a voice-operated sign because, you know, you're sitting in traffic and there's that person behind you who cannot get it through their skull that you cannot go any faster than the person who's in front of you. So they're 2 inches from your bumper. And I just want to be able to put a voice memo on and say, look, buddy, if I could go faster, I would. Please back off. Wouldn't that be a great product? I should invent that. If I do, I'll make $1 million. Anyway, let's continue, guys. Thank you for sharing those things. If there's something else that you guys wish existed but doesn't, hit me up. So what are some traits of entrepreneurs? You guys nailed these already. People who take risks. They're creative. They love what they do. They're independent. They don't need somebody else rubbing their shoulders and telling them it's going to be okay, because sometimes it's not going to be okay, but you got to keep going anyway if you're committed to your vision. I think these are big things, important things to consider. So it comes down to, too, guys, sometimes people with great ideas, sometimes are terrible managers. Well, here's the flip side, too, guys. Sometimes you got managers, people with great ideas, who don't know the tech. Let me give you an example by show of hands. How many of you have ever had a class with a teacher that you knew was smart but could not teach? Exactly right. Sometimes the smartest people don't make the best teachers. Sometimes somebody with a really charismatic idea might not be all that technical. Like, for example, I mean, we're doing a lot of hand raising today, but it's all good. How many of you guys, even if you like him or not, how many of you guys think Elon Musk is a pretty smart dude? Oh, I'm with you. He's not writing code for Tesla. He's not designing the batteries. He's not making the rockets work. What he is doing is managing the enterprise and hiring really smart people to do what he needs them to do. You don't have to know everything. One of my favorite terms for management, which we'll cover in the next chapter, is management is the idea of doing something through other people. And again, sometimes people who are really smart don't know how to do that. Let me give you one more example. Is anybody in this room, I'm up for a review too, if you have used this product or consumed this product, has anybody here had an Impossible Whopper? Wow, nobody. Has anybody had any fake meat product in their life? Yeah, what have you had?
One time I accidentally picked the fake meat chicken tenders out of the store and got home and cooked them, and then realized they weren't real.
It was a shocking day, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How bad were they?
They weren't terrible, but my mom wasn't happy.
Yeah. They're pretty close if you know what you're getting into. They're not so bad. What
They
did
just
you?
don't look right.
They don't. They only foam.
Yeah.
What did you have?
I'm like veggie burgers.
Veggie burgers. Some of them were okay, though, right? They're not like real burgers. No, somebody had an ear infection. What did you have?
I had veggie burgers, vegan sausage, and
I've done all those things too, by the way. I used to date a vegetarian back in the 90s. At Christmas, it was Thanksgiving, she made this thing called tofurkey. Now, tofurkey is made out of tofu and it's molded to look like a turkey. I'm not kidding. Because tofu doesn't have bones, they give you a stick to break instead of a wishbone. It's called a wish stick. I remember breaking the wish stick, wishing I was eating turkey. It was terrible. But that being said, the guy who runs Beyond Beef has done a pretty good job. The guy who runs Impossible has done a pretty good job. If you get an Impossible Whopper and you put cheese and toppings on it, it's pretty hard to tell the difference. This guy is a scientist, and he does amazing stuff. If you've ever seen him in interviews, he's not the most personable person in the world. He has to hire other people to do that part of his company because he wants the science and the money. He does not want to deal with the public relations. So sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, you got to surround yourself with other people. So we talk about the idea of small business and what a small business is. By the way, actually no, I got to tell you guys about this Impossible thing for a minute before we continue because it is impressive. Guys, how many of you, by a show of hands, would rate a good juicy hamburger in your top 10 things to eat? Seriously, burgers are religious experiences. If I know my wife is making smash burgers, like, you guys know what I mean when I say smash burgers? Like, super thin, super pressed. Like, I don't want people to bother me. I want silence. I want to sit and have that moment with that burger. That's how I feel about burgers. These guys went as far with their burgers, with the Impossible Burger. They have synthesized a chemical that's made out of hemoglobin. Does anybody know what hemoglobin does? What is hemoglobin? Yes. It's in your blood. What makes it red. It's what comes out of a juicy steak or a burger when you're cooking. That juice is colored with hemoglobin. They have gone as far to insert hemoglobin types of chemicals, I'm not saying it's all good, into those burgers so that when you cook them, they smell like meat, they behave like meat, and even ooze the same juices meat would. It is impressive. Even if you don't like veggie burgers, you got to respect the science and the engineering behind this thing. And so a guy who would go to that kind of commitment, you got to respect. But he does need to surround himself with other people. Impossible Foods cannot exist as a small business. They need to operate at a scale. They need to operate at a scale because right now to buy an Impossible Burger is more expensive than buying a hamburger. They would not make it as a small business. Now, you may ask yourself, what is a small business? How do we define small? Small is a relative term. And there is no specific answer to what small is. But generally speaking, most people will say if you've got one person but no more than 50, you're a small business. Some companies judge it at 500. If I ask you how many people are in a small business and you said 50 or less, I'd give you credit for that answer. You could make an argument for 500, though. For example, for Ford Motor Company, if they're buying a company that has 500 employees, they would consider that to be a small business. Generally speaking, we're talking between 1 and 50 people. It all depends who you talk to. These are things that came out of small businesses, guys. We got the Wright brothers. Who here can tell me what business were the Wright brothers in when they had their first flight at Kitty Hawk? You know what those guys did for a living? The guys who invented the functional airplane, anybody ever guess what did they do? They ran a bicycle shop. So all the people in the world who said you'll never make a functioning airplane, keep in mind, guys, this is like 100 years ago. This isn't that long ago in the course of human history. We didn't believe, even with all our physics and science, that flight was possible. And a couple of guys from a bicycle shop found a way to make it work. What you're seeing in the middle is the first Apple computer. Yes, it's made of wood. This guy used what he had on hand, Mr. Jobs did, and he created the Apple computer out of wood with internal components that he was literally hand wiring. You can see that he had routed Apple computer computer on the back of it. The Fender Stratocaster, one of the most iconic guitars in all of rock and roll, came out of a small business. By the way, Leo Fender, the guy who invented the Fender Stratocaster and basically invented rock and roll as we know it today because of electric guitars, died yesterday, like 30 years ago yesterday. He died on March 21st. The only reason I know that is because I'm a big Fender fan, and I think it's amazing what comes out of small businesses. So, guys, a lot of people over the last couple of years have been starting to innovate. In the last year, a lot of people have started businesses. Why? Because what else are you going to do? People are laid off, and they're saying, I've got to do something on my time. I might as well come up with a business and decide what I'm going to do. I'm not going to read these stats to you. You can read those for yourself. But we're seeing more people start businesses out of their homes, for example. We're seeing more people who are not your traditional older business owners start up as well. Although entrepreneurship, the highest rate of entrepreneurship is people over the age of 60. So in terms of the number of employees in most companies, guys, if you go to the United States, over half of all companies have between 1 and 4 employees. You know, you can read those for yourself as well. It says that people have big ideas in small companies, and we're seeing more of these kinds of companies start all the time. So, guys, in terms of a small business, if I ask you guys, how many people work for a small business, how would you answer that question? 1 to 2. You could make an argument for less than 500, but that would be the example. When we have the rise in small business right now, a lot of the rise in small business in the last year has been, we had free time with COVID. We're at home by ourselves. Might as well start a business. I know we're moving fast here today, guys, but there are many ways to start a business. The first is if you got a great idea. We have somebody who just has an idea for something new or innovative. Yeah, let's start a business. You can decide to take over an existing business. You might get the family business, for example. Oh, here's a good one for you guys. The oldest brewery, and Will, you're not allowed to answer this one because you know the answer to this question. The oldest brewery in the United States is in Pennsylvania. The oldest continually operating brewery is in Pennsylvania. Does anybody know what the brewery is? That's a good guess. Try the other side of the state. Wow, nobody knows, really? I'll give you a hint. It begins with a Y. Yingling Brewing. It's the oldest brewery in the United States. It's been continually operating, I think, since 1876. Guys, check this out. The people who own Yingling Brewing are German. It's a German family, and it's been passed down within that family generation to generation. Check this out. The next owner of Yingling Brewing, the oldest brewery in the United States, is going to be female. The daughter of the Yingling family is getting next in line in succession. They have an old German business practice, however, that whenever a generation takes over a brewery, they have to buy it from their parents. She has to make her own financing to buy it from the current guy who owns it, a guy named Dick Yingling. Why might that be a sound business practice? Why might that be a good thing to require your kids to buy you out? Any thoughts? Yes?
So they have to earn it both in terms of just kind of like showing the parents like respect, like, hey, you know, you're not just gifting this to me, but it's also good for the person who's earning the money to like get some experience outside of that company so they can come back in and know what they're doing.
Exactly right. So we show that this person understands that they're mature enough to run the business, that they know how to raise the funds for the business, that they have the ability to say we're going to be financially responsible. Here's what else is interesting about Yingling Brewing, by the way, because keep in mind, oldest brewery in the United States. Now, in the 1920s, what happened in this country that made it really hard for people selling alcohol? Anybody remember in their history class, what was it called? Prohibition. The 21st Amendment that banned the sale of alcohol. By the way, 21st Amendment, I am going to be on my soapbox for a minute. In addition to the intended effect of taking alcohol off the streets, what else did it give rise to in the United States? Bootlegging and organized crime. And by the way, bootlegging is also where NASCAR started. So NASCAR started from people who were rum runners originally. But bootlegging started because of it. Yingling Brewing had to come up with something else to do during Prohibition to make money. Anybody have a guess? Oh, this would be a a great bonus question. What did they make because they couldn't make beer during Prohibition? Give you a hint. I talked about a specific aisle in the grocery store that's ridiculously long. What am I talking about? I said you have so many choices. You can walk one end of this building to the other with all the choices you have in the grocery store with this product. Rocky Road, cookies and cream. Ice cream. So Yingling literally made ice cream during Prohibition. Now here's what was really interesting, because this predated modern refrigeration. If you go to the Yingling Brewery, they've got a cavern where they used to make ice cream. The day Prohibition was repealed, they had fresh kegs of Yingling beer already ready. You think they were actually maybe making beer the whole time? That's exactly what they were doing, and they were doing it under the cover of an ice cream business. That's your little story that might be a bonus question. But that being said, how do you start a business? Well, you got to have an idea. You're going to decide what form of organization do you want. Are you going to be a sole proprietorship? Or maybe you're going to start as a sole proprietorship, work your way to a partnership, and then be a corporation. You got to develop a business plan, and your business plan means how you're going to be profitable. Generally speaking, here's the most fundamental business plan in the world. I'm going to buy raw materials here. I'm going to combine them into something of value. I'm going to sell them over here at a profit. That is the most fundamental business plan there is. If you make pizza, you're going to make dough. You're going to get dough. You're going to get cheese, sauce, and pepperoni. You're going to combine it into a pizza and sell it at a profit. At that point, once you know how you're going to make money, you got to get startup funds. Maybe you get them from family. Maybe you do crowdfunding. Maybe you get other ways of getting money into your business. If you take on bonds, you're getting debt financing. If people are buying into your business, what kind of financing is that? Begins with an E. We have debt, and we have equity. Equity. Very good. It was almost like I got stuck on that. It was terrible. So thank you guys for helping me out there. You can also buy a business from somebody else. Again, sometimes we get an idea when we're doing our current job. Sometimes, for example, we see something that just doesn't work well, and so we start a new business. For example, a lot of the folks who started Uber originally worked at Google, so they had an idea about how to do this stuff. And sometimes maybe we'll even modify an existing approach. The other thing, too, when you leave a company, your contacts there can be your source of capital and investment. In fact, some of these folks who go off and start other companies get bought back by the company they left in the first place. It can all work out really well. So, in terms of other things to do, we're just going to skip those slides. You guys can read that for yourself. We can choose whether or not we want to be a sole proprietorship. And again, we may start small, and sooner or later we run out of funding, we run out of ideas, so we take on partners, or we decide to become a corporation. Guys, who here can tell me, because we just talked about forming corporations, what might be an advantage if you had a great idea that was catching steam, and you were a sole proprietor or you're a partnership? Why might you want to become a corporation? What might be an advantage? Why might you want to become a corporation? Help me out. Yes? So we can have a bigger footprint and a bigger structure. That's definitely true. Well, back here, why might we form a corporation? For anybody in this room, why might we form a corporation? What advantage do that give us? We form a corporation, what can we do? What can we sell? Begins with an S. Second letter is T. Stocks, thank you. You can sell equity. Exactly, guys. You can have people invest in your business. You can grow the business. You don't have to be by yourself. Other people can have a say in it. You can always change it later. And again, your business plan means how you're going to make money. In terms of the model, how does this build your business? Well, if your sheets, for example, I know some of you will know the answer to this question. For every dollar Sheets makes in revenue, how much is profit? 1 cent. I knew you knew that. So the point is, you're going to decide if you're going to make your money on volume or if you're going to make your money on total profit per item sold. For example, if we have a Ford Focus or we have a BMW M3, which one has more profit built in? What do you think? Who sells more volume, Ford or BMW? Yeah, there's more Fords on the road than BMW. So what that means is that you're banking on more profit from the BMW. So your business plan is going to be built based around volume, or it's going to be based around individual profit, for example. And this is a good place, if we can get a wonderful question or comment, this will be a good place for us to end, because we're going to start into the business plan on Wednesday. But I need a question or comment somewhere in the room before we can convene our session today. What question or comment? Who has a question or comment? Yes, sir.
Have you ever thought about starting a business?
I actually did start a business. Mine was a nonprofit. I started a nonprofit foundation back in 2012 called Patch Together Incorporated, and we are a nonprofit 501c3 that raises funds for grieving children. So we fund a local children's charity. I think as of last year, our total funds raised was $135,000 since we've existed. So we're not huge, but we're small. What about you? Have you thought about starting a business?
Not really. My dad owns a business. Just figured I would do something with that.
Nothing wrong with taking over the family business, man. That's pretty awesome. Guys, have a wonderful day. We'll see you.